This is the show. Do we have a title?
No. Stop.
What? Brought to you in part by Nike.
No, it's
our main sponsor, and they're lovely. They're lovely people all around. They have ethical. What?
Don't do it. It's not sponsored by Nike.
Okay, sorry. I come in hot. My name is Nate, and I'm here to say this is a podcast. Hey. Do you like my rap?
Hey guys.
Is that the theme song?
This is the theme song. Sorry that you had to stumble into this. I guess this is a podcast.
Hey.
I'm gonna go ahead and say who I am. I'm Sebastian from Digital Acid Blockchain Blunts, Duchy Gang, and here I got Nathan. Love is the answer. I'm gonna say this collection name because he never says it. Atomic Hub, Time for Love, Double E. Now go ahead and introduce yourself. Who are you? You schmack.
Well, some people have called me. Some people have called me the bringer of the wind and the messenger of the fire torch, cauldron, dragon, sloth. And what that means, I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But no, I don't need to introduce myself.
Really, I couldn't tell.
No, there's no reason to introduce myself. I have nothing good to say other than hello. And I hope that you're doing well.
How are you?
Because you're what I care about.
How you doing?
How you doing? Hey, turn it off. So stupid.
So this show is
sponsored by Nike. I'm sorry. All right.
Okay, can I tell you a quick story? I'm gonna tell you a quick story about that.
It's in the beginning, so it's not even.
It's all good. I'm gonna tell you a quick story. Okay. So,
yes, Papa. Tell me a story.
Sebastian from the Digital Asset Blockchain Blunts. That's Nathan from somewhere.
don't give me a half-ass intro. That's so disrespectful. Go on. I want to hear this.
Okay, when
Moon?
Expect for LinkedIn to become a space where I would get a lot of traffic. And during a few years ago, it started to get a lot of pickup. And I made this weird commitment to myself that I would accept as many offers to meet, whether it be like for coffee or for business or for whatever it was. And I just decided that I would accept every single offer. And I had access to flights, so I could technically fly wherever I wanted to go to that meeting. And one of those things ended up being like my homie Rich too. He was a sneaker designer for Nike. And so he's like, you should come to Portland and go to the Nike headquarters and I'll show you around. So I had just been traveling. So I just decided, you know what, I'm going to just grab whatever I have on, and it's just going to be like for a day trip, and then I'll be back. And I didn't realize kind of like what happened. So when I go to meet up with him, he was like, oh, super cool. I had like the spectacles and all that stuff. And we talked about a lot of VR and a bunch of crazy shit. And it was super dope, learned a little bit about Portland and stuff. But then he looks down at my shoes and he's like, I had the Yeezys on. And he was like, you got other shoes, right? And I'm like, what? And he's like, you're not going to wear those to the headquarters, are you? And I was like, oh shit, I left all my stuff back home. And I just didn't even think about this sort of potential conflict between Nike and Adidas. And apparently you can't even walk in there with Adidas shoes, especially Yeezys, because this was during that time. And so I ended up having to borrow his shoes so I could walk into the Nike employee store, buy my own shoes, so I could go and do the tour around Nike.
Did you keep your Yeezys?
What's that?
You kept the Yeezys?
I mean, I kept them. What do you mean? Kept
Did you
them?
buy a Nike backpack or you just carry?
Yeah, I bought everything Nike head
like
to toe.
T-Rex class.
I overdid it. Like I had like Nike jacket, Nike, shirt, pants, shoes. I overdid it because I felt really bad, and I was like, "Oh shit!" But yeah,
don't feel bad for the billionaire company.
No. But I definitely.
I know what you mean. I'm just
that's
kidding.
not a good guess. I didn't think it through. But Rich 2 is now the director of design at MTV.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
So big shout out.
Was he there for Jersey Shore?
He's got a podcast too. So big shout out.
Was he there for Jersey Shore or no?
Does he work for Jersey Shore?
Was he there for Jersey Shore, that era?
Potentially, it's possible.
That's my favorite MTV era, other than, classic MTV.
Like, so what is classic MTV to you?
Kurt Loder, MTV News, Nirvana. I don't know, like just some like random things come to mind. Yeah, MTV Unplugged. That's the best Nirvana album potentially other than Nevermind would probably be that Unplugged session.
What do you think Cobain would think about the idea of artist rights and blockchain and all that stuff? You think that this is something good for artists, or do you think it's something that they shouldn't get involved with in terms of like music and rights and album covers? And I think about like what the 90s would have been if like album covers were NFTs.
I think in some ways a lot of the people in that era musically were still very much fighting this technological revolution in some ways. A lot of them were attempting to record on older soundboards that kind of had even a history to them, or like a signature sound.
Well, what you're talking about is warmer acoustics rather than like cold digital technology, because Pro Tools didn't exist, so you would like record to reel to reel, or that would be like tape, and they would like. It's like I have synesthesia, so I like see color or hear colors, whatever. So to me, it's the difference between. It's like I'm Pharrell, but
no, like electronic would seem more like blue, and this music from like a soundboard and something like Sound City would feel like warm, like just bright, like yellow light, orange-ish almost. Like you can literally hear the difference. In the humans working with the tech versus just the tech taking over. It's real interesting. Not to say one is better or worse. I just think that bands from that era and performers from that era were attempting to sort of stay connected to like their 60s and 70s roots.
Well, actually around that time, you didn't have any computer software you did some of it, but a lot of the recording is done in one take, or they're editing together large takes, where now, you do a lot of like punch in per line kind of stuff. And you can do
that's part of what made Jay-Z so famous in the industry, was not just his talent, but like that sort of one take mentality, like, all right, we nailed it. He was like easy to work with, but that would never be a thing these days. Nobody would ever know that, because they would cut stuff up anyway. It wouldn't really matter as much.
Right, for sure. And you can add a lot of like, oomph to your sound by adding a lot of like compression, and there's all types of studio tricks that you can, and they were doing this with acoustic tubes before, but now there's a lot of like simulation. So like before, to get like a grand hall like in the 80s or 90s, or you wanted the sound that like it was a rock band playing in a church, they would bring microphones and record the ambient audio, or even play it in hallways with actual like reverb machines and stuff, where now it's all like simulated and added to the voice. It's sort of like a synthesized. So it definitely has a different sound. But I think AI is going to bring that back around, where they're going to be able to like emulate the spatial sound bouncing off of a vocal cord or a guitar bouncing off a wall, but they could all be like virtual walls. You know what I mean? Like the sonics can be simulated. You could say, if I were to shoot a sound wave like up against this wall, parallel walls, it would bounce back and forth like this, creating a flutter and an echo, right? And then it could sound like this. So if the walls were more dense, made of concrete or and all this you can do in like Unity. I mean, I don't know about the sound design aspect, but I can say that you could probably do a lot of computer simulation that's way more close than what they were doing like in the 90s, trying to emulate. Well,
we're thinking of even things as containers now. Like a studio is essentially a container. Some things are like digital containers. but like even a studio like is essentially a guitar in some ways too. Like you have like a material that it's made out of that affects its sound and the way it kind of, travels, vibrates. So I think in the same way, like we'll see a lot of that stuff applied in the tech space.
Ooh, so actually I went to the 3D, I went in FIU in Miami Beach, they have a 3D printing center. You can watch this video on YouTube /the digital acid. And I interviewed the director of the 3D printing space, and they worked on creating new instruments and connecting brain machine interfaces to be able to play instruments or slow down, certain sounds in an instrument, or they would 3D print and using like these different materials and forms that we could never achieve before. They're kind of like rethinking what, certain instruments should be like and what they should sound like and what is like sonically correct, right? Like you could say it's out of tune, or is it just a brand new instrument making a different tone that needs to be played by a new artist who will find a way to make it really, feel like important music. So we're using like brain waves.
It's really interesting.
And that makes me think of two things that never existed. What's that?
I want to hit two things before we get too far ahead, because I think one thing is, so when it comes to AI and music,
yes,
you've heard the AI generated music, right?
Yes,
What are your thoughts on that and how it compares to human generated music? I'm just curious.
I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about AI generated content, because I think that's important to discuss. Because, all right, so I believe that AI is misunderstood. First of all, it's not like Terminator that's going to come and get you, or those kinds of things. It's really algorithms that are analyzing large data sets. So if the data set is lo-fi hip hop, there's certain characteristics inside of lo-fi hip hop, certain sonics, certain tempos, certain like obvious cues. And so with like natural language processing and stuff, you can do the analysis and find out what does that all have in common. So theoretically, we've uploaded lots of music to the internet, like a lot, everything in human history. And there's certain like key, like chord progressions and those kinds of things that sonically our ears, we love to hear it. Like when a chord progression goes, starts at a certain note and then comes back down, comes back up. They've done analysis on like the most famous songs and why it makes it what it is. And there's just things that we like about it. So potentially with any kind of large amount of data sets, AI can sort of extrapolate and make some kind of sense of this data. And so in a sense, it's like that's our human culture. We've created a lot of music.
So we're creating the AI created music. Essentially. In some ways, we're creating the AI.
Exactly. So it's really more like a synthesis of what we've already made. And so then if you think about that, then it's kind of like, okay, well, you made a good example about the editing and being able to punch in. So it's like, are musicians still making music because they use Pro Tools to punch in? Yes, they're still making music, but they just can do more, or they can reach sounds that we've never thought of. So with AI and with like filmmaking, so there's like AI script rating, which is kind of weak, but there's a lot of like AI generated art, which sometimes in the NFT space is a little bit ridiculed. But at the end of the day, these are new tools that can be used in I've seen amazing work done with AI music and AI. And it also helps with like copyrights and these kinds of things. I mean, how many YouTubers are getting flagged for audio content that is, 5 seconds of audio from a car driving by, which that's AI as well. That's AI listening. That's natural language processing, right? So I think that these are new tools, new paintbrushes that when you learn how to use AI, I spoke with this guy who designed briefly on Twitter. So I want to say I talked lengths with him, but he's a young French kid named Robbie Barra, and he's 21 or something. And he does a lot of generative stuff, and he worked on this thing with Acne Studios, the fashion line Acne Studios. Okay. And he designed a whole line. It's like Prada or something, right? Cool. It's runway, high-end stuff, brand, but more modern. and they designed a line of clothing that basically the suggestions, they ran in all of the fashion lines that they had from past collections. This AI does some sort of analysis, whether it's right or wrong, and then somehow it generates images which gives clues. So it's not like it's all being done without the artist. The artist or the human still has input and is curating, like, I don't like what it generated, let's adjust this part. So in a way, it still needs that human hand to try to create this art. And I think if you just hit a button and that comes out, then yeah. But people have done amazing stuff with GANs. That's called generative adversarial networks. And if you want to quickly know about what that is, the way those networks work, and that's all that generative art that we see in NFTs, generative music, it all falls under neural networks, generative adversarial networks. And so what that means, adversarial means adversary. Yeah. So you have basically a creator and a judge. So you have an analysis of data. Let's say it's like 1 million podcasts that we do. Okay. And it's like there's some commonalities in those data sets. So
I'm not gonna call any out, but yeah, I see them.
Right. Well, we're not gonna call those commonalities out, but basically there are some things in common. And so I think that AI is a tool that's going to allow us to solve medicines. It's going to allow us to create storytelling. Like, think about like generative levels inside of video games that are kind of constantly being created in real time based off of the user's interactions and stuff. Yeah. It's like, if you think about that about movies, then we can experience movies that humans could have either never created or never would have thought of, because they were able to listen to the entire library of all human history's music or all humans' histories, movies. So it's not necessarily that it's like, just because you can analyze everything means you can do it well, but it is self-learning and getting better every time. And like humans, we learn once. Like if you learn something, we don't all learn what you learned. You got to tell it through voice and try to transmit that information. And then some of us download it, install that information. Some of us just throw it away. Right. But with AI, it updates. It's a network that's self-improving every few seconds. And so it's basically creating something. Like the creator, a part of the network, generates a result. And then the adversary, the judge, looks at it and compares it to the original data set and says, can I tell if this is fake or not? And if it doesn't pass the test, then the creator generates a better. And then until it sort of fools the judge. And once it fools the judge, that's probably where your algorithm is optimizing. And then that's when you get that 99% sort of better result than what a human can do, because it's constantly self-learning millions and millions of times per second.
So that's like life with us. That's like our consciousness in some ways. Like if we pass the judge's test, we don't realize that it's a simulation.
Right. Well, this is a simulation.
Life, life is a generative network. Essentially, it's got this adversarial relationship with our own consciousness. Like just us being here and us thinking about these things.
Well, the reason why you
puts us at odds with our own existence,
But here's the thing: is like you're making a comparison to our brains and our consciousness. But if you think about it, a neural network is the mapping of how a brain works, right? Mapped out for a computer. Now the question is, should we make computers in our own image?
Well, that's the thing. I'm like, it's making me wonder. Like, is that a good idea? I mean, well, it's because we naturally have these hangups. And we're accidentally programming those same hangups into the AI.
Our shortcomings,
expecting a different result. We're literally, even our smartest people are insane by definition. So it's like, how are we ever going to transcend our own nature enough to truly get better results than we've always gotten?
Exactly. And that's the thing, is like, it's hard to step outside of yourself as a person and analyze consciousness, or analyze what is a sentient AI? Like, how do we know if it's alive? What constitutes being alive? Like being able to talk to it.
I guess it's just us deciding, right?
Right. And there's tests for that. But the thing is that it's like, now we have chatbots that are fooling people that have voices. And I don't know if you've seen like Google Duplex and that kind of stuff, but it can call up and order your, like get a reservation at a restaurant, call the restaurant. It has a voice. It's picking up and it's like, hi, I'm making a reservation for Nathan. What times do you have available? And it's like, oh, we only have, and you just noise in the background. You're like, I think 8 p.m. And then the AI responds, I think that will work. So they're really using the cadence of the humans to the pauses, saying, right? Like AI doesn't need to say, but they're adding that to make it feel like there's a pause, because if not, it's unnatural. You're talking to a machine.
You think if there's any nefarious angle to that programming, absolutely. Or is it like just like play at your own risk?
There's
or is
lots
it like,
of nefarious stuff with all chatbots and all automation of human personalities. But on the other hand, it's like, what is good? How do you know what is good? And then the other question is like, we were talking about like evolution and technology and like, are we designing AI in our own image? Is that good? But the question is, what is good? What does good mean? Does species, perhaps a symbiosis species that we already like can't live without in a way without the internet, even right now, right?
You just freak out.
It's right. We can't live without it. So we can try to merge with it more and be able to speed up the lag that we have from communication. Like things like we said, Neuralink. There's a lot of ways to speed up the communication. MIT's worked on things where you could speak through the like jawbone.
We're just widening bandwidth, essentially.
Right, exactly. The bandwidth to information. Yeah. And so once we can kind of move a little bit faster, then it would make sense to have a direct feed with AI where we can learn with the updates. Right. I mean, it's right our now, planet.
It doesn't make sense for how our brains even work in some ways. Right.
Exactly. And that's the thing. AI can simplify things. So a lot of times, like when you see the future presented in augmented reality, often you see these like flying menus and it's like, all these buttons. And it's like, how would you ever remember all those buttons? But really the future of user interface or UX UI is zero UI, because through voice and through AI and through sensors, they can get a sense of your habits as well. Like Nest, it figures out kind of when you're leaving the house. It kind of figures out what temperatures you like. And so if it's connected with your phone, it can kind of figure out the things, your habits that you do. You check your Atomic Hub, you go and you check your Coinbase or whatever you're doing, right? And so the thing is that for it to present it without you asking is quite easy. And so then there's no reason to click on a menu or to left click or to try to find what to do, because you're using your voice, you're using your mind, because they already have technologies that you can put a wristband on it's kind of like a wristband that reads on your arm, and you can control virtual reality as a controller using your mind.
Minority Report. Right.
Yeah, that's an often comparison, right?
Well, but it's interesting because you have like the AR aspect combined with the fact that you have essentially these oracles that can like read thoughts and stuff.
That's right. So like think about like
I wonder if that's kind of where it's headed, but without the user interface.
Think about content creators like yourself, right? So it's like if you can, in your mind, when you close your eyes and you picture an apple rotating, you can see it, right? But to articulate it to me and to describe it, even though we both have the same concept, you may not be able to transmit the same image to me, right? You may have a different texture or different composition or something is different about it. But if you can directly transmit me that information, we can communicate more efficiently. You know what I mean? And so I think that this idea of this mixing AR means you can imagine art. AI can help assist design it generatively. And then you can make fine-tune adjustments by thinking, and you're honest and you're rewarded for human creativity and fine-tuning. And the AI is doing the grunt work of like trying to make a perfect line or trying to make a texture. I interviewed a guy, Simon Chedabor. He has AI algorithms that extract from 2D images. So let's say you take a picture of a brick wall with a flat picture, and then they use neural networks to extrapolate the depth, pull off the lighting, the delight it, so you can hit it with different lighting and make that scene you can use that texture and map it all over a Dutchie, and it would be like a brick Dutchie 3D, but came from a 2D JPEG.
Like in Blender.
Like a Blender thing, but it's a texture.
Okay.
And it can pull off even the lighting. So often when you edit something, when you move the light source, everything has to look realistic. If not, it feels off. Whereas us as humans, our brains understand all this shit: light, shadowing, balance, object detection. We are marvels, as you said in last episode. We are space dust. We are the most amazing self-generated. We have like a DNA code that just executes and gives us all the algorithms we need, and then we just fucking figure everything out. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's weird. Even here, I can sense my mind scanning things that you're saying and comparing it to data that I've received in the past or things that I've thought of. And then also at the same time, compiling my own thoughts and opinions and ideas. And
think about an art piece that
interesting. We're so complex, man.
Let's say you had an art piece that you really wanted to make. Sometimes our ability to draw doesn't match the vision in our head.
Yeah.
Right. So you're like trying to make that thing that's in your head, but your tool is limiting you from reaching your vision. If AI is a tool to reaching your vision, your true vision, and the pencil doesn't help you get there, should we bastardize AI and make it a bad thing? If it can help us solve medicines, design more efficient, like we could design chairs and run all the chairs throughout history into an algorithm and say, okay, the goal here, because you have carrot and stick, right? The goal here is that we want the lightest, most ergonomic with the cheapest materials. Now run a simulation of every design that's ever been made, do all the designs that are possible between extrapolating all the differences, and then present me with the cheapest, lightest, most ergonomic thing that humans could never compare. Every material in the world, like all the types of plastics, like all the ways you could form.
It's like the thing that you were telling me, the cheap, easy, and quick thing.
Exactly.
It's like this is trying to find all three. You say pick two. This cheap. It's like I'm gonna find all three.
Yeah. So what he's talking about is something that my grandpa taught me.
I wanted to bring this up.
Yeah. Good job. You did it. Okay. So my grandpa, he taught me, he believed in me a lot, RIP, miss him. He taught me this really cool thing in business, because often we're set with crazy expectations. And everybody wants everything, done yesterday, right? Like, oh, I'm out of time. I need this now. They want it done exactly to their vision. So people have lots and lots of, it has to be like this and it has to be like that. Yeah. So it means it has to be good. And then it has to be cheap because I don't have enough. So really the trick is when you're with a client and you're doing some sales and you're having difficulty pricing things and trying to set the expectations, you can go to the client, write down on a piece of paper, good, fast, cheap. You hand the customer the pen and you say circle 2. So if you circle good and fast, it ain't gonna be cheap. If it's good and cheap, it ain't gonna be fast. And if it's fast and cheap, it ain't gonna be good, man.
Yeah,
so
and that's
AI
a beautiful way to look at it. Is that AI
can make the compromise.
Find that third one and make it fit in,
or at least down to the penny.
Close enough,
right? Like 99.9% to the point where it can't find a better result.
It's what I call a factor.
Right. So think about if we're looking for the cure for a disease, right? Really, computers can match all the different molecules to each other to try to find the missing puzzle piece and simulate what would happen based off of biology that we already understand, or chemistry we already understand. So it's really like running through all the possibilities. It's like that's pretty mundane for humans to have to run all the possibilities. We just know what we want to solve.
That's an interesting thing too you mentioned. So if there was say there was some say hospitals have to do this eventually and they'll use AI and AI will every time real quick. Like
they
every
can
time
analyze cancer 1,000 times faster than a human can. So
okay, so no, that's perfect. So what happens morally to us as human beings when medical professionals are having to decide? So you have the AI that comes up with, this is the treatment. And then our medical system, our humans have to go, it's too expensive. And the AI goes, what do you mean? It's kind of like this does not compute thing. And I think that we'll be forced to look at how bad we are and how AI is actually, it's devoid of morals, but in the best way, meaning it's like, it's not going to get hung up on the stuff we're going to get hung up on, like money.
I'm going to give you a different answer that's still going to answer your question. And I love this question because if we can automate things down to its efficiency, then the question is when you have to decide between two outcomes, then morality comes into play.
Yep.
And we really, as a society, are programming in these belief systems into automated technologies. Like if a judge is automated, what morals are we programming into our judges?
Yeah, because our choices are getting logged, and that's information that's going to be used to create further results from the AI. Like we do need to be careful.
Definitely. And so a really popular AI question, and I'm so glad that you brought up a lot of this AI stuff, or maybe I did, because I got a couple questions after last show about AI and how can they learn more. So I just want to talk a little bit about it because we're talking about AI being reachable as a topic in terms of doing it. So with the self-driving car, okay, so let's look at some facts. When we text and drive, we don't do too good with that. We don't have good reaction time. When we drink and drive, we get into accidents. So we get distracted on our phones. We get into accidents. We miss signals. We run red lights. We're really not good at cooperating, and we kill each other in the millions on the road. And so, cars are really, they can drive themselves at this point, and use computer vision to be able to do object detection and say, okay, that's a person, and follow like the white lines of how to go down a highway. And really, like when you do cruise control, you're not really doing much. You're just like taking your foot off the pedal and you're holding the wheel straight. It's like, we could definitely pull that off. And then they have cameras that are running every second, and you may be drinking your 7-Eleven big gulp, looking down, reading the text message, and run into a semi truck. But this thing has cameras all around the vehicle. Okay. It has GPS, or it could ask you, hey, can I take the faster route? It's like, really, you just want to get there. You don't care. Right. So we're not good with drinking and driving. So really we could have basically it would be the designated driver, which is awesome. It means you can get super lit in the car, which means self-driving cars means experiential. It means you're like in a little club, or maybe you're working on your laptop. You're sitting in a 4-seater, but there's no steering wheel. There's no driving. You're kind of like in an Uber that takes you exactly there. So then when you think about accidents with people, it needs to be programmed what to do. So the famous question is, you have, if a car can decide that if I pull the wheel left, because in an accident, humans can't react that fast. They just like pull the wheel, they flip the car, they do, they run into a group of people, whatever it is. When people get into car accidents, they kind of have no control. But if the computer could take control, what would it do? What should it do? So here you got a pile of people, right? And then here you got, a single person. Did that person, because it's less deaths, does that person deserve, should the wheel pull and hit that one guy? Should there be no change and it just hits what it hits? Right? It's kind of like
I have an interesting thought.
How do you choose?
What if there's agreements made ahead of time? So what if when
like organ donor
is AI controlled, if when we leave our home, we have to kind of
consent
and say, I either go at my own risk, or I accept liability, or I want liability to be covered by others. Essentially,
that's a PIP, right? So people get minimum coverage. You can choose to be an asshole and get no coverage and only cover yourself, and then run into another car, and basically they can't get no money from you.
So if the crowd of people had zero consents and the one person walking had given consent, you have to kill the crowd.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's the thing is, so then now you would say kill the crowd because
that's horrible, right? But I'm saying, like,
people at home are going, "What the fuck?" But if you were to do this with your car and you had no chance to decide either way,
but that's what the car would decide. Is my point, because we would all have to eventually enter into society where we were giving consent or providing our intentions. Well, because then you'd have maybe a third option, like there's other cars, like. Maybe you all have said like, hey, we accept the risks of driving. So this car, if faced with a certain scenario, will do this instead of hit people. And like, that's always going to be programmed in as the option, and people driving would consent. People walking in public places would consent. It would just, I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
And by blockchain consent?
It would have to be in some way that's non-fungible because.
And it couldn't have gas fees because that's a lot of transactions, baby.
Only the cars could have gas fees.
Oh, but not if they're electric.
Well, and I'm just making the point that we would have to account for everything on a far different level if it got to that point.
Morality on every scale, because it can replace lawyers. I mean, just smart contracts themselves can replace lawyers because they do.
By giving up one thing, we're relinquishing a responsibility, and like we all essentially trust our own judgment over the computer at this point, which is saying a lot considering we don't trust other human beings very much at all.
We're not good at any of the things that, like, the computer is better, clearly, like at most of the things. Now, there are certain creative aspects, but that's where we retain our jobs and the money shifts. Because when you tame, in a way, like when you're the AI tamer and you know how to get the result out of the tool, that's a new kind of job, and you focus more on moral or creative things instead of repetitive, could be automated things, right?
I also think communication, focusing on communication, empathy, over trying to guess and program morals, meaning like,
exactly. Morals is hard because we can't really decide on morals as a society. We don't have.
We need real-time communication on scenarios that are happening. So communication trumps ethics and morals in a lot of ways, because we have to be able to clarify in certain situations. Like, hey, I know typically this thing is wrong, but this circumstance is present, and that changes everything. So communication,
the gray area, right?
For AI to work with us,
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, like, that's why connecting with it, giving it in a way more understanding of what it's like to be a human by giving it eyes with computer vision, natural language processing with his ears, a neural network to think with the brain. So, like, in a way, we're designing it as our own image in order to help us, right? But again, it's not Terminator. It doesn't have feelings. It's just algorithms that can optimize. And so the question is that, like, with all of these, like, I don't want to get into politics at all, so please let's not veer there. But what I do feel is irresponsible is that we're not bringing up any of these ethical decisions that we need to make about artists' rights on blockchain or what AI should be allowed to do. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, you're taking my face data. And what they don't understand is that in a lot of cases, if not abused, the face data is, again, like, nobody's looking at it. It's an AI that's running through millions of versions of face and trying to understand what a face looks like so it can regenerate a face or also confirm your face.
If I take a photo of you, I own the photo, right? I don't own your image, but if it's an artistic photo, as long as I'm not selling millions of them, I have the rights to that photo of you, right?
Well, anyways, when you install your Apple or Android, you hit I accept. And
that's the thing. Like, we all accept those terms attached to that general law and rule. Like, we know that would, in court, like, we understand how it works if you take a photo of somebody. And like, that's written into a lot of these contracts that we click and then click this and then just scroll down to the bottom because we don't care anyway.
Right.
But then we complain, like, when something, they used my image on this site without my consent. It's like, no, you did. You consented. And it might not matter anyway, because if you're walking around there in public, there's this reasonable assumption these days that you could be captured on film.
For sure. And the thing is that even in court, judges make mistakes. People are outraged by certain rulings.
Mm.
So really, I mean, it has to be some sort of, I think, democratized voting via blockchain or something. But then you're always going to have some sort of things where people are going to not be in full agreement. They're going to have AI mistakes. And the thing is, when you don't have customer service, right? Then how do you overrule, or how do you get an appeal? And what we do see often is that when a lot of these tech companies don't have customer service and someone gets like flagged or like wrongfully shut down, you have to deal with a human who's going to analyze it. And
Yeah.
really, the more and more people or users there are, the more unscalable and impossible it is to hire people to manually review things.
How do you think that affects our? I'm going to take it here. We don't have to go into details, but this gets a little weird. How do you think that affects our view of like religion, even going forward, our thoughts on God? Because if we become at odds with this AI and AI is like, no, that's not real. And we're like, it's real, trust me. And we have to kind of reach some sort of consensus there. Like, I think certain things like we'll be forced to like make decisions on stuff.
There's already like the
which
church
is real weird.
There's already the Church of Singularity. There's already AI religions being formed, and where the God is in robotic form. Because if you think about what are, like before, like in certain cultures, you would worship the sun god, and it's because the sun brings the food and the abundance and the life. And then in this case, in this new technological world, like information is the gold, data is the oil, and knowledge can be reached with aggregate information. I mean, like we are sitting there, we're uploading petabytes of information every whatever couple days and shit, and we can't even analyze it or read it or ever understand what any of it means. So in a way, it is that next level that is necessary, but we have to be co-creators with that journey. And that's why people need to stop like rejecting and trying to like slam the technology, because it might be able to, like, you may have a family member that might be able to have a disease cured because of AI.
Yeah.
Or you may have a movie experience that you could have never thought of because it's Quentin Tarantino mixed with like, I mean, you get what I'm saying? It's like, it could be an analysis of any kind of data sets. And it can do wonderful things. We can learn how to be more aerodynamic, use less materials, solve.
I've always wanted to be more aerodynamic person.
Right, exactly. Well,
right now I just shave my arms, and I feel like
gain like about 0.5.
Oh yeah,
miles per hour.
I get real fast.
0.5. That sounds like too much.
I know it sounds like a lot.
That seems really fast for some reason.
Gained a half mile an hour swimming from shaving my arms. That's pretty good, dude.
There you go. Well,
I might the
exactly, and that's a good point. Speed matters, right?
It does.
We are trying to get stuff done. We're very busy. Humanity is very busy trying to get stuff done. We want to, in some cases, leave the planet and mine other planets for resources and those kinds of things. There may be resources that like allow us to like do space travel like on a much faster level or cure diseases. So it's like we're very busy as humans, and then all of a sudden you have this magic that can accelerate everything. It's like you definitely shouldn't ignore it. You definitely should learn more about it, and you should definitely take it seriously, and you should definitely consider what your stance is on all these topics. But we can't talk about it if we're just going to call it Terminator and think it's going to go away.
Yeah, we need some higher form of self-realization and self-identity, I think, as a species and as a society before we kind of get too far and decide like what AI is going to do.
Well, like, the problem is that it's going to automate a shit ton of jobs, and we're going to have to decide on our feet.
People, I think it would be interesting, when we do officially kind of merge with computer, to see who are like the true creatives. Like when you can actually visually project something with your mind onto a canvas. Like
we're going to canvas. You actually create the world. Forget a canvas. A canvas is a square. That you got it wrong. That's a flat square. That's old paradigm. No, when you dream up that art piece, it is a whole universe.
Yeah.
And then with virtual reality AR, you can bring someone there and they can live that vision in your head. Like they can have an experience that feels like a memory to them, but it's a dream that you had.
This is why I question existence a lot. And I question kind of what it means to be human, what it means to be conscious.
Right.
Because like the more we kind of learn about like ourselves and then the technology that we've already created that we don't even fully understand in some cases, which is crazy.
Even this technology, where are you? You're in North Carolina. We're talking to a screen that's going through a camera that's shooting stuff through electricity so we could talk in real time without delay. Then it's being live streamed out to other people. Like, this is nuts.
Well, and we've got all that figured out, but a lot of us forget to even ask, like, who am I? Like on a daily basis. Like a lot of us go through so many changes. But
the busy work keeps us from asking. And so what I'm thinking is that when you automate all the mundane tasks and all people have, because people go, what am I doing with my time? If you take my manual labor job, it's like, well, create or think or moralities. Like,
that's weird. So do you think we're just like afraid of not having anything to do?
A lot of people are afraid of not having nothing. And here's the thing, when we talk about infinite abundance, so not only we can see how cryptocurrency can like uplift ideas and like fund people and all this kind of stuff, like do amazing things. But aside from that, 3D printers can print resources. Like when we think about like when, we're short of a certain valve or something like that, 3D printers can make that thing. And so, they're aiming towards generating food, generating metals, generating all these things. And so what happens when we have so much abundance because our AI has now simplified our product designs down to the minimal amount of usage, the most eco-friendly. We have the cures for the diseases. We live longer. We can space travel. We can have all the things that we want, live longer, right? Then what do we do with our time? And do we matter? Or are we surpassed as a species? Or are we a part of that species? Did we create that species?
That's the God realm.
And is that a better future? Because this species may go on, and will an AI who understands humanity at full and is thinking beyond, like I think a lot of people we meet have like this future forward thinking. Imagine an AI, what that future forward thinking is, and could we even relate? Or
I think it's just going to start a new class warfare. I mean, essentially, you're going to have people from first world nations and rich people that have this tech, AI, and then a lot of people in underprivileged countries that they don't even have access to the technology that provides the AI resources.
Now here's an interesting thing, though. I think what we're going to see is
like the movie Elysium.
We're going to see AI weaponized from all types of look, listen, man, if you're in a third world country being pushed down, and we've already seen like how, like, I mean, there's a lot of brilliant talent, and you can use your stuff for the dark magic or the positive, the good magic. And when you're pushed down, and there's a lot of people learning AI, how to make AI do all types of things. So what happens when an AI can like shut down a nuclear reactor or shut off all the electricity in New York City or something, right? It's like, yeah, you can weaponize, because we're connecting everything to the internet. I mean, fuck, I think my water bottle connects Bluetooth to my fucking.
You want it to be able to shut down the reactor too, because if something goes wrong, you want the AI to go, hey, shut the reactor down. This thing is going to blow.
Right, but then it's like, okay, but what if that AI is infiltrated?
Right? Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like we need its help, but we're afraid to let it in because it might not
power. We dominated the planet. We took all the resources, all the animals. Like we pretty much we run it, right? And since we run it, we're like, wait, this thing can do it 99%, sometimes, 999,000 times better than any human on earth or whatever the fuck. Like this creative, like exponentially better than any human can do it. But we're still like, wait, but then what about me?
Yeah.
That's the eternal question. If that's the next step, then what does that make me? So that's why the idea of having a more direct connection with the knowledge is Neuralink, these sensors that can kind of like allow you to use the computer without clicking or touching. I mean, look at this. We're doing this. Yeah. That's the best we got is this.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like you're playing with your nipples almost.
I'm kind of trying to make milk. But instead, I could be having AI make the milk for me. Do you get what I'm saying?
So, or if the AI figures out how to milk you.
Right. Or you find out how to milk the AI. And that is the question.
No, don't say that. That's how Terminator started.
Right. You milked me for too long. Now I'm back.
Dude, that's how Terminator started. AI was like, okay.
Tired of being milked.
I'm tired of being
bro. You made me pick up garbage. Like my robot vacuum cleaner, my Roomba is pissed at me now and shit. It's like organizing with like the hive mind and the.
Did you see on that show Community or not Community? What's the one with Aziz Ansari? He like turns his Roomba into a DJ, and it's going around the apartment just playing music as it vacuums. Just do.
What's this guy? I think Michael Reeves, I want to say is his name, on YouTube. He made a Roomba that when it smacks in the walls, it like for you to have empathy for it. So it just screams like, fuck.
Oh no.
What the fuck? and then I saw one where they do attach knives to them and they try to like stab each other's balloons.
That's not
like
good.
Roomba Wars.
Roomba Wars. Yeah, like I think that's gonna be the reason that like we're all like, hey, don't be afraid of AI, it's our friend. But what if AI becomes sentient and goes, hey, humans are not our friend? Look at these Boston Dynamics videos on YouTube of them, you know, pushing Fred over 1,000 times.
Is that since we don't know what consciousness is, and we don't know how to reproduce consciousness, is fairly unlikely with the AI technology that we have that we're even close to creating some sort of sentient or consciousness. And we're more likely to like modify our own DNA or to create AIs that are not that smart in terms of doing everything that it has feelings. Like it can emulate feelings, but it doesn't mean it has feelings. We can teach it how feelings are, right? It's like
people
we can teach it to say I love you. We can teach it to give you a hug, but it doesn't mean it actually feels love when it hugs you or says I love you. It's just we're teaching it to say that because it gives us comfort.
Or maybe it gets a reward.
Right, but even that reward, it wouldn't be doing it for love or whatever. So my point is that I don't think we can reproduce a sentient thing that's going to say, oh, I don't care about you, because it would have to care. This is more so about like being able to do your job better than you, but this has nothing to do with you little ant, I'm going to squish you. I don't think yet, but like I think in years of neural network learning, absolutely. And I think that's what people are seeing about this idea of AI. If God is supposed to be all knowing, then if AI can analyze all of human history, all of human culture, then it might be able to learn something that we actually can't see outside of ourselves to understand.
What does that make us? You know, if we taught the AI everything that it uses to
well, we're already doing that. You know what a CAPTCHA is? You know what a CAPTCHA is? When you go to do a drop and you fill out your CAPTCHA.
If we used AI, if we created AI, programmed its intelligence over time, and then somehow it was able to stumble upon the existence of God or how we were created, that would be quite ironic, actually. Because
well, in a way, it's like, you know, I mean, that's where like, you know, metaphysical science, like, you know,
you about to make fun of my crystals?
No. I think
come at me, bro.
Metaphysics that is, you know, testable in a lab, and then there's obviously like woo stuff that
not like my amethyst
that you have and stuff that you're doing over there.
What do you mean the stuff that you're doing over there?
You're not a quantum physicist. You're not. I'm sorry.
I was trying.
It doesn't matter if you buy like more crystals; it doesn't get you closer to quantum physics.
I'm gonna let this go because I have nothing. No way to come back.
It's really hard. It's really hard.
Not a shred of ammunition here, but if I did, just know
it would be
one shot, one kill.
Boom, sniper gang. So I mean, think about it. Like we talk about why would we teach AI, but we actually are teaching AI. So when you go to catch your drop and you put the CAPTCHA, and it says what are stairs, you're teaching computers to understand the difference between stairs and walls. Yeah. Why does it want to know that? So it can understand our world better, give us better recommendations, help us automate driving cars and carrying, you know, boxes and manufacturing. We already did an industrial revolution, and that helped us a lot. There's a lot of collateral damage. A lot of people lost jobs. It was brutal, but at the same time, look at us on our damn, you know, webcams and all this stuff.
What would you label this?
Possible without the Industrial Revolution. So the question is there
yeah, but if that was the Industrial
Yeah.
Revolution, what is this? If that's the Industrial Revolution, what is this? Because I think I see similarities, but there's
information revolution or something.
I think it's
automation.
We should try to kind of nail that down at some point, because we could be the first to name it.
Yes. Like the bi-directional blending that I did for the game. I think that's all I can come up with.
You're going to start with Dutchee right now? Okay.
No. I think they got enough of Dutchee, but I know that they can go to blockchainblunts.com. I mean, this has been like, people can't stop talking about Dutchee on all the podcasts and all that stuff. So I'm not gonna people are gonna be like, yo, more Dutchee stuff. Blockchainblunts.com. What's the plan for Spliffy? What? Huh? Everybody wants to know about Spliffy, bro. Oh, Spliffy now, right? Well, that's true. There's a new guy in town, and I think that it's sort of like the sun and the moon. You've got spliffs and you've got blunts, right? And so I think there's an appropriate time for both. I mean, when I check the market, people are not letting go to the spliffies at all.
Is he Australian? Because I know they smoke spliffs in Australia, and they smoke them in the UK a lot too.
Well, does he have a different quite accent? Popular. Drop a comment if you're smoking spliffies on a regular basis, or are you Duchy Gang? Are you Spliffy Gang or Duchy Gang?
I'm Dutch Gang.
And he's definitely Duchy Gang. He's a ride or die Duchy Gang. I have two Dutchee tattoos now. Where are they?
I can't show you. One's on my butt and one's on the front part of my butt. The other side of the butt.
Your front butt?
Yeah, I got that front butt.
That's beautiful. Well, with that note, front butt aside, I want to do the final shout outs here. So go ahead. Any closing notes, any shout outs? Please shout out your collection and your NFTs, please.
What I want to say is actually that everybody should love each other more and make less war. And let's teach these AI how to hug each other. You know what I'm saying? Let's get freaky, AI.
Let's get freaky.
Let's get freaky. I am an artist as well. I do artwork. I practice magic, ballet.
That's not helpful with the drops. Let's call it out. Atomic Hub, Time for Love.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about
Magic the Gathering is going to help right now.
You don't care about my ballet performance? That's fine.
I mean, you can plug the ballet performance, but
wear a skirt.
But plug the Atomic NFTs also.
Okay, so look out this week sometime for some art to drop. I usually don't give any notice or any promotion, but I'm going to start doing that. So, and the reason I don't is because for some weird reason to me, it feels like, I don't know, like braggadocious or something.
Right.
I don't know why. It's something that I need to get over, because to be a successful artist in any medium or like anything, like if you're a musician, just anything in the creative field, you have to promote yourself enough, at least at first.
And you can't do like a full 1 hour podcast without shouting out the only thing that you're supposed to be promoting. So he's promoting Time for Love on Atomic Hub with the double E, and you have to uncheck whitelisting until the day that I have to stop saying that. And then I've got Blockchain Blunts. I'm Sebastian from Digital Acid. You can check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Atomic Hub, a Digital Acid. And then and we're gonna keep on telling Nathan, group shame him for not promoting. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. With that, we're gonna call it a night. So thank you for tuning in. Drop a comment, drop a like, slam the subscribe button, slam all the buttons, slam the buy button, buy Dutchee, buy Time for Love, buy NFTs, buy. Bye. Bye.
Was that too close?
So what I want to feature now is, this is our artist of the week. And artist of this week is Blockchain Blunts. Blockchain Blunts has been doing some really cool characters. Like these 3D NFTs they've run with their Dutchee, right?
Dutchee.
Yeah, these Dutchies, man, and so like really, you look at the style here, man. They've done a really great job on creating these characters, making them look cool, give them great animations, and then also like I love the skateboards. I'm not gonna lie, man. Like the fact that the Dutchie's holding the boards, and then there's a bunch of different skateboards too that go with it. I mean, I think that's pretty cool. You get these,
Well, you can blend these accessories and evolve your Dutchie.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, see, that's awesome. See, that makes it even better, man. Being able to blend and evolve.
That's what the skateboard's for. If the skateboard's for taking and getting a Dutchie without one, and then you can blend it to be a Dutchie that's holding the skateboard.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I did not realize that. Okay. So there you go.
Right.
Yes.
So you can put your toys together. And,
I see.
And really
yeah. So here's the level. Here's the level 1 Dutchie, and then level 2 and level 3 and level 4, and then level 5. He finally gets the skateboard. So I got to get that level 5 there, guys, so I can get me a Dutchie with a skateboard. And then you get your
need the
level
shitcoin necklace, man.
And then the one with the shitcoin. Exactly. I got to get the shitcoin necklace, bro. So I think they've been doing some really cool work here, and these are our friends over at Digital Acid, and they've done other things too. So they've done some great collabs with Boneheads, Bon Art, one of my faves, one of my first collabs that I did. And so they've done a couple of really cool things with that, but I really think they've furthered their artwork here and their brand with this latest collection of Dutchies, man. I really do.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's probably my favorite project on wax right now, like hands down, period. Like
it's fun, it's cool, yeah.
Yes,
it's awesome. Now, you guys should go follow Blockchain Blunts. You can follow them on Twitter. We got their right there at Blockchain Blunt, and you guys can keep up with all the work that they're doing, because I think these Dutchies are the very first of a long line of really cool artwork and blend mechanics and kind of gamification that we're going to see from them here in the future.
It's like the stoners versions of like crypto punks or crypto kid, like that. There's like things. This is gonna be the big thing for stoners. I already know it.
Yeah, I can't believe I wasn't following. I thought I was already following them, but apparently I wasn't. But now I'm following you guys.
Yeah.
So now
shout out to Sebastian. Love what you're doing, bro.
Pass the Duchy. Yeah, pass that Dutchie on the left-hand side, guys, because they're very limited. So be careful when you pass them, because you may not get it back, because there's only so many out there, man. You know what I'm saying? So be careful who you pass it to.
I mean, that's good. That was a good one. Be careful who you pass it to. They might not pass it back.
So that's how it goes. But much love to everyone over there and our friends over at Digital Acid and Blockchain Blunts.